Judges 19 through 20. Now it came about in those days, when there was no king in Israel, that there was a certain Levite staying in the remote part of the hill country of Ephraim, who took a concubine for himself from Bethlehem in Judah. But his concubine found him repugnant, and she left him and went to her father's house in Bethlehem in Judah, and remained there for a period of 4 months. Then her husband set out and went after her to speak gently to her in order to bring her back, taking with him his servant and a pair of donkeys. And she brought him into her father's house, and when the girl's father saw him, he was glad to meet him. His father-in-law, the girl's father, prevailed upon them, and he remained with them for 3 days. So they ate and drank and stayed there. Now on the 4th day they got up early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "Strengthen yourself with a piece of bread, and afterward you may go." So both of them sat down, and ate and drank together. And the girl's father said to the man, "Please be so kind as to spend the night, and let your heart be cheerful." However, the man got up to go, but his father-in-law urged him, and he spent the night there again. Now on the 5th day he got up to go early in the morning, but the girl's father said, "Please, strengthen yourself and wait until late afternoon." So both of them ate. When the man got up to go, along with his concubine and servant, his father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, "Behold, the day has drawn to a close. Please, spend the night. Behold, the day is coming to an end. Spend the night here, so that your heart may be cheerful. Then tomorrow you may arise early for your journey and go home." But the man was unwilling to spend the night, so he got up and left, and came to a place opposite Jebus, that is, Jerusalem. And with him was a pair of saddled donkeys. His concubine also was with him. When they were near Jebus, the day was almost gone. And the servant said to his master, "Please come, and let's turn aside into the city of the Jebusites, and spend the night in it." However, his master said to him, "We will not turn aside into a city of foreigners, who are not of the sons of Israel. Instead we will go on as far as Gibeah." And he said to his servant, "Come, and let's approach one of these places, and we will spend the night in Gibeah or Ramah." So they passed along and went their way, and the sun set on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. They turned aside there to enter and spend the night in Gibeah. When they entered, they sat down in the public square of the city, for no one took them into his house to spend the night. Then, behold, an old man was coming out of the field from his work at evening. Now the man was from the hill country of Ephraim, and he was staying in Gibeah. But the men of the place were Benjaminites. And he raised his eyes, and saw the traveler in the public square of the city. And the old man said, "Where are you going, and where do you come from?" And he said to him, "We are passing from Bethlehem in Judah to the remote part of the hill country of Ephraim, for I am there, and I went to Bethlehem in Judah. But I am now going to my house, and no one will take me into his house. Yet there is both straw and feed for our donkeys, and also bread and wine for me, and your female slave, and the young man who is with your servants. There is no lack of anything." Then the old man said, "Peace to you. Only let me care of all your needs. However, do not spend the night in the public square." So he took him into his house and fed the donkeys, and they washed their feet and ate and drank. While they were celebrating, behold, the men of the city, certain worthless men, surrounded the house, pushing one another at the door. And they spoke to the owner of the house, the old man, saying, "Bring out the man who entered your house, that we may have relations with him." Then the man, the owner of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brothers, please do not act so wickedly. Since this man has come into my house, do not commit this vile sin. Here is my virgin daughter. and the man's concubine. Please, let me bring them out. Then rape them and do to them whatever you wish. But do not commit this act of vile sin against this man." But the men would not listen to him. So the man seized his concubine and brought her outside to them, and they raped her and abused her all night until morning. Then let her go at the approach of dawn. As the day began to dawn, the woman came and fell down at the doorway of the man's house where her master was, until full daylight. When her master got up in the morning and opened the doors of the house, and went out to go on his way, then behold, his concubine was lying at the doorway of the house, with her hands on the threshold. And he said to her, "Get up and let's go." But there was no answer. Then he put her on the donkey, and the man set out and went to his home. When he entered his house, he took a knife and seized his concubine, and cut her in 12 pieces, limb by limb. Then he sent her through the territory of Israel. All who saw it said, "Nothing like this has ever happened, or been seen from the day when the sons of Israel came up from the land of Egypt to this day. Consider it, make a plan, and speak up." Then all the sons of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, including the land of Gilead, came out, and the congregation assembled as one person to the Lord at Mizpah. And the leaders of all the people, all the tribes of Israel, took their stand in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 foot soldiers who drew the sword. Now the sons of Benjamin heard that the sons of Israel had gone up to Mizpah, and the sons of Israel said, "Tell us, how did this wickedness take place?" So the Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, answered and said, "I came with my concubine to spend the night at Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. But the citizens of Gibeah rose up against me and surrounded the house at night, threatening me. They intended to kill me. Instead, they raped my concubine so that she died. And I took hold of my concubine and cut her into pieces, and sent her throughout the land of Israel's inheritance. For they have committed an outrageous sin and vile act in Israel. Behold, all you sons of Israel, give your response and advice here." Then all the people rose up as one person, saying, "Not one of us will go to his tent, nor will any of us go home. But now this is the thing which we will do in Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot, and we will take 10 men out of 100 throughout the tribes of Israel, and 100 out of 1,000, and 1,000 out of 10,000, to supply provisions for the people, so that when they come to Gibeah of Benjamin, they may punish them for all the vile sin that they have committed in Israel." So all the men of Israel were gathered against the city, united as one man. Then the tribes of Israel sent men through the entire tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What is this wickedness that has taken place among you? Now then, turn over the men, the worthless men who are in Gibeah, so that we may put them to death, and remove this wickedness from Israel." But the sons of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brothers, the sons of Israel. Instead, the sons of Benjamin gathered from the cities to Gibeah, to go out to battle against the sons of Israel. From the cities on that day, the sons of Benjamin were counted, 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who were counted 700 choice men. Out of all these people, 700 choice men were left-handed. Each one could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. Then the men of Israel besides Benjamin were counted, 400,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were men of war. Now the sons of Israel set out, went up to Bethel, and inquired of God, and said, "Who shall go up first for us to battle against the sons of Benjamin?" Then the Lord said, "Judah shall go up first." So the sons of Israel got up in the morning and camped against Gibeah. The men of Israel went to battle against Benjamin, and the men of Israel lined up for battle against them at Gibeah. Then the sons of Benjamin came out of Gibeah, and struck to the ground on that day 22,000 men of Israel. But the people, the men of Israel, showed themselves courageous, and lined up for battle again in the place where they had lined themselves up on the first day. And the sons of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall we again advance for battle against the sons of my brother Benjamin? And the Lord said, Go up against him. So the sons of Israel came up against the sons of Benjamin on the second day. And Benjamin went out against them from Gibeah the second day, and struck to the ground again 18,000 men of the sons of Israel. All of these draw the sword. Then the sons of Israel and all the people went up and came to Bethel, and they wept and remained there before the Lord, and fasted that day until evening. And they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And the sons of Israel inquired of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, Aaron's son, stood before it to minister in those days, saying, Shall I yet go out to battle against the sons of my brother Benjamin, or shall I stop? And the Lord said, Go up, for tomorrow I will hand them over to you. So Israel set men in ambush around Gibeah, and the sons of Israel went up against the sons of Benjamin on the third day, and lined up against Gibeah as at the other times. When the sons of Benjamin went out against the people, they were lured away from the city, and they began to strike and kill some of the people as at other times, on the roads, one of which goes up to Bethel, and the other to Gibeah, and in the field about 30 men of Israel. And the sons of Benjamin said, They are defeated before us, like the first time. But the sons of Israel said, Let's flee, so that we may draw them away from the city to the roads. Then all the men of Israel rose from their place, and lined up at Baal Tamar, and the men of Israel in ambush charged from their place, from Mare Geba. When 10,000 choice men from all Israel came against Gibeah, the battle became fierce. But Benjamin did not know that disaster was close to them. And the Lord struck Benjamin before Israel, so that the sons of Israel destroyed 25,100 men of Benjamin that day, all who drew the sword. So the sons of Benjamin saw that they were defeated. When the men of Israel gave ground to Benjamin, because they relied on the men in ambush, whom they had set against Gibeah, the men in ambush hurried and rushed against Gibeah. The men in ambush also deployed and struck all the city with the edge of the sword. Now the agreed sign between the men of Israel and the men in ambush was that they would make a great cloud of smoke rise from the city. Then the men of Israel turned in the battle, and Benjamin began to strike and kill about 30 men of Israel. For they said, Undoubtedly they are defeated before us, as in the first battle. But when the cloud began to rise from the city, in a column of smoke, Benjamin looked behind them, and behold, the entire city was going up in smoke to heaven. Then the men of Israel turned, and the men of Benjamin were terrified, for they saw that disaster was close to them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel to flee in the direction of the wilderness. But the battle overtook them, while those who attacked from the cities were annihilating them in the midst of them. They surrounded Benjamin, pursued them without rest, and trampled them down opposite Gibeah toward the east. So 18,000 men of Benjamin fell. All of these were valiant men. The rest turned and fled toward the wilderness, to the rock of Rimmon. But they caught 5,000 of them on the roads and overtook them at Giddam, and killed 2,000 of them. So all those of Benjamin who fell that day were 25,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were valiant men. But 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and they remained at the rock of Rimmon 4 months. The men of Israel then turned back against the sons of Benjamin, and struck them with the edge of the sword, both the entire city with the cattle and all that they found. They also set on fire all the cities which they found. Mark 5. they came to the other side of the sea, into the region of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. He lived among the tombs, and no one was able to bind him any more, not even with a chain, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles broken into pieces, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. Constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains, and cutting himself with stones. Seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up and bowed down before him. And shouting with a loud voice, he said, "What business do you have with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God, do not torment me." For he had already been saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And as he was asking him, "What is your name?" he said to him, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the region. Now there was a large herd of pigs feeding nearby on the mountain, and the demons begged him, saying, "Send us into the pigs, so that we may enter them." Jesus gave them permission. And coming out, the unclean spirits entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. Their herdsmen ran away and reported it in the city and in the countryside, and the people came to see what it was that had happened. And then they came to Jesus, and saw the man who had been demon-possessed sitting down, clothed and in his right mind, the very man who had previously had the legion, and they became frightened. Those who had seen it described to them how it happened to the demon-possessed man, and all about the pigs. And they began to beg him to leave their region. And as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed was begging him that he might accompany him. And he did not let him. But he said to him, "Go home to your people, and report to them what great things the Lord has done for you, and how he had mercy on you." And he went away and began to proclaim in Decapolis what great things Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. When Jesus had crossed over again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed by the seashore. And one of the synagogue officials, named Jairus, came, and upon seeing him, fell at his feet, and pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Please, come, and lay your hands on her, so that she will get well and live." And he went off with him, and a large crowd was following him and pressing in on him. A woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years, and endured much at the hands of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was not helped at all, but instead had become worse, after hearing about Jesus, she came up in the crowd behind him and touched his cloak, for she had been saying to herself, "If I just touch his garments, I will get well." And immediately the flow of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And immediately Jesus, perceiving in himself that power from him had gone out, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see the woman who had done this. But the woman, fearing and trembling, aware of what had happened to her, came and fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace, and be cured of your disease." While he was still speaking, people came from the house of the synagogue official, saying, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher further?" But Jesus, overhearing what was being spoken, said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, only believe." And he allowed no one to accompany him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the synagogue official, and he saw a commotion, and people loudly weeping and wailing. And after entering, he said to them, Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child has not died, but is asleep. And they began laughing at him. But putting them all outside, he took along the child's father and mother and his own companions, and entered the room where the child was in bed. And taking the child by the hand, he said to her, Talitha cum, which, translated, means, Little girl, I say to you, get up. And immediately the girl got up and began to walk, for she was 12 years old. And immediately they were completely astonished, and he gave them strict orders that no one was to know about this, and he told them to have something given her to eat. Titus 3. Remind them to be subject to rulers, to authorities, to be obedient, to be ready for every good deed, to slander no one, not to be contentious, to be gentle, showing every consideration for all people. For we too were once foolish, disobedient, deceived, enslaved to various lusts and pleasures, spending our life in malice and envy, hateful, hating one another. But when the kindness of God our Savior and his love for mankind appeared, he saved us, not on the basis of deeds which we did in righteousness, but in accordance with his mercy, by the washing of regeneration and renewing by the Holy Spirit, whom he richly poured out upon us through Jesus Christ our Savior, so that being justified by his grace, we would be made heirs according to the hope of eternal life. This statement is trustworthy, and concerning these things I want you to speak confidently, so that those who have believed God will be careful to engage in good deeds. These things are good and beneficial for people, but avoid foolish controversies and genealogies and strife and disputes about the law, for they are useless and worthless. Reject a divisive person after a first and second warning, knowing that such a person has deviated from what is right and is sinning, being self-condemned. When I send Artemis or Tychicus to you, make every effort to come to me at Nicopolis, for I have decided to spend the winter there. Diligently help Zenas, the lawyer, and Apollos on their way so that nothing is lacking for them. Our people must also learn to engage in good deeds, to meet pressing needs, so that they will not be unproductive. All who are with me greet you. Greet those who love us in the faith. Grace be with you all. Proverbs 12:17 through 28. One who declares truth tells what is right, but a false witness, deceit. There is one who speaks rashly, like the thrusts of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Truthful lips will endure forever, but a lying tongue is only for a moment. Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but counselors of peace have joy. No harm happens to the righteous, but the wicked are filled with trouble. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal faithfully are his delight. A prudent person conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims foolishness. The hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy hand will be put to forced labor. Anxiety in a person's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. The righteous person is a guide to his neighbor, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. A lazy person does not roast his prey, but the precious possession of a person is diligence. In the way of righteousness there is life, and in its pathway there is no death. Psalm 105, 1 through 15. Give thanks to the Lord. Call upon his name. Make his deeds known among the peoples. Sing to him. Sing praises to him. Tell of all his wonders. Boast in his holy name. May the heart of those who seek the Lord be joyful. Seek the Lord and his strength. Seek his face continually. Remember his wonders which he has done, his marvels and the judgments spoken by his mouth. You descendants of Abraham, his servant, you sons of Jacob, his chosen ones. He is the Lord our God. His judgments are in all the earth. He has remembered his covenant forever, the word which he commanded to 1,000 generations, the covenant which he made with Abraham, and his oath to Isaac. Then he confirmed it to Jacob as a statute, to Israel as an everlasting covenant, saying, To you I will give the land of Canaan, as a portion of your inheritance. When they were only a few people in number, very few, and strangers in it, and they wandered from nation to nation, from one kingdom to another people, he allowed no one to oppress them, and he rebuked kings for their sakes, saying, Do not touch my anointed ones, and do not harm my prophets.